Okay, let's try this again. Thank you so. I'm going to get my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 if you're not careful. Okay, good morning and thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. Thank you. It's awesome to have you here in person, and to our friends who are joining us remotely, thank you so much for sharing your Tuesday with us. We're really glad to have you here. This Love Tutoring Festival is the first blended event, and we're planning to do lots more of them. So please save the date. Love Tutoring Festival 4 is coming at the end of June, and there'll be a very big room there with lots of space for everybody to join us. This initial conversation is a small room of people who I know define excellence in tutoring. And so what I've done is bring you here together to collaborate, to share, to discuss themes, our big concept of what excellence in tutoring is. And hopefully by the end of the day, we'll have some shared language, some shared expectations, and feel like as a profession, we're going forward on the same page. As you know, that's what Qualified Tutor is all about. It's all about bringing people together to raise standards in tutoring. And so I'm really glad to share that journey with you all. This is just about the friendliest room I could ask for. So as you who know me well will know that I really appreciate that. So let's go. The agenda is this. Thank you so much to Bond, who sponsored our breakfast this morning. I hope you enjoyed it very much. I certainly enjoyed half of mine. The first session we'll be talking about defining excellence, and there'll be a structure that will be common to all the 4 sessions that we do, and I'll show you that in just a second. The breaks today are hosted by Manning's Tutors. Thank you so much. The second session will talk about quality assurance for all. The reading resources are in your workbook, and if you haven't received that in an email or accessed it yet, I will show you it on a QR code in just a second. Lunch will be served, and then we will have our final session, the discussion side of it, which will be collective tutor efficacy, which is a really big idea that I'm looking forward to discussing with you. And then we're going to talk about some recommendations. So we're going to pull together all the thinking. Now, this is the team. Hello, welcome. Welcome. I'm Julia, as you know, and Adrian Conway is the voice of the remote people today. So Adrian is fielding the chat over there, making sure that people's comments and contributions are brought to the room. We've got Odette and Tia on real life logistics and Hannah on remote logistics. So anybody who's struggling with any remote issues, please email hannah@qualifiedtutor.org. Thank you so much to Vievma. Our production team pulled it out the bag in less time than they're used to. And I won't tell you that that's not how we roll, because it is how we roll. But basically what happened was I was planning to just do this, and I got carried away. We now have 100, I know! We have 150 people who registered to come and attend remotely. And we felt that the conversation should be an inclusive conversation. And so we brought in Vievma, this amazing production team, who will enable us to create a real blended event so that we can bring everybody's voices together. So thank you, Julian. Thank you, Donnie. And thank you, Dila, who's working on the Zoom. IRL participants, that's you, to contribute to the conversation, which will be at the end of each session, you'll need to be using the microphone, which will be following around the group. And remote participants, during the main presentation, you'll be muted, but you can continue to use the chat box. Anybody who hasn't attended a Qualified Tutor event before will not know how we use and abuse the chat box. We strongly feel that contributing your ideas in the chat is not interrupting. It is layering the dialogue, and it allows people to go off and explore more themes through the conversation. There is no reason why we should be following a linear pattern here. There are lots of layers of tech that we've provided for you to make sure that you are bringing as much to the conversation as possible. Do not hesitate to use the chat. We want to hear from you. Please use the same link during the day to join the sessions. So if you, remote people, if you go off, just join us back on the same link. And whenever you can, please have your screens on. That means a lot to us. Let's go. The objective for today is really simple. It's really consistent, and it's really been the objective of the last few years. We are raising standards in tutoring together. We step up, we lean in, we ask the questions, and then we respond with innovation, with support, and with new opportunities. And those of us who have been working together for years now know that there are no right answers, and we are open to finding the solutions together. This is a space of generosity and abundance, which takes me on to the Qualified Tutor House rules, which you have in front of you in lots of different forms because we're really consistent, if a little bit boring. Be curious, be generous, and reflective is what we're all about, and you'll see it again and again. We are curious when we drop our own ideas and pick up others. You know what you knew when you got up this morning, but if you're really here to learn, park that for a minute and see what else you can pick up fresh. Look for fresh ideas and look around with fresh eyes. There are amazing people sitting next to you. Be generous means this is not one of those sessions where you're supposed to be polite and nod. It's one of those sessions where you're supposed to lean in and show us what we know, what you know. We want to hear from you. We want you to bring it. So that space of curiosity, and the reason why I've called it Curiouser and Curiouser actually links to this adorable bag here. So I'm going back for a second to tell you about curiosity. I want play in this session. So we've brought sponsorship, which you'll receive afterwards, from Great Little Rewards, who have all sorts of delicious sensory resources. I'm sorry, remote people. The reason why I asked them to contribute to this event was I want play, I want exploration. I want you to think fresh in these sessions. So be curious, be generous, and then that last piece is be reflective. I'll know that this day was valuable if you come out changed. No pressure. Really, I'm always looking for transformation. There was no other reason to come and do this today. We're looking for transformation. We're also looking for alignment. So if everybody shares each other's email addresses and lots more conversations come out of this, then that was worth doing. Lots more opportunities coming out of it. But more than that, who are you going to be different by the end of this session? If you haven't yet downloaded your workbook, you can do so now. And if you have already, and you've taken a sneak peek ahead, what you'll have found was that there is a pattern to each of the discussions that we'll be running today. The first session, the first part of the discussion will be Curiouser and Curiouser, and that's where I'll be sharing with you some of the ideas that I've developed over the last few years working in tutoring. What I would like you then to do is share generously your own ideas on tutoring. And again, the expertise in this room is phenomenal. The amount of tutors that each of you are responsible for and guiding is phenomenal. And the amount of students that each one of those tutors reach is exponential. So really, if we can get something really beautiful happening here today, it will ripple out very, very far. So welcome to session 1. Again, we're here to define excellence, but really, spoiler alert, this is the definition of excellence. Excellence is professional dialogue. Excellence is proactive integrity. Excellence is commitment to leading this profession together. Nobody in this room has all the answers, but that's absolutely fine because together there's going to be some magic happening. I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about one of my stories, and then we're going to unpack a principle that I've been working on called responsible tutoring. Then I'm going to ask you to discuss those. And then I'm going to ask you to work on a survey. So at the end of this session and at the end of every session, there will be a survey that you'll be asked to go through to share your ideas so that we can really bring it together We'll create a white paper out of it with your name, as long as you give us permission. Welcome. Really nice to see you, Jen. So if you can share your ideas with us at the end of each session, then we'll know how to represent your ideas. So, my story, 3 hats. Those who know me know that I always wear 3 hats. And so I finished my qualification in headship, and I was looking for a new challenge. And I didn't want to take on a bigger school, because I didn't want to bring my good energy to a system that can't use it. What I wanted to do was bring my energy somewhere where it could really make change. And what I saw was that the skills that I learned as a school leader, nurturing, coaching, leading, guiding, organizing, and really speaking to the well-being in the practitioners that made a huge ripple effect in each of their classrooms, was something that I could bring to tutors. So I had a moment where my 3 hats aligned, and you'll see with me there's a whole lot of Venn diagrams, because what I'm really looking to do is bring those roles together. And what I saw in that moment was that the safer recruitment practices that I had learned in school were not being deployed consistently with tutors. There are pockets of excellence, many of which are in this room. But what we didn't see at that time, and this was where I was wearing my mummy hat, was I didn't know how to employ a safe tutor. I didn't know how to choose a tutor who wasn't necessarily down the road, wasn't necessarily recommended by my neighbor. I didn't know how to find that person who was the right fit for my child in the time that they needed it. So at the time, my eldest had just gone into year 7. He's now turning 17. And we started needing tutors. And I had this feeling that I wasn't behaving as a mother with the same consistency and professionalism that I was as a head teacher. And so in that moment, I was able to see that what we needed was a quality mark. What we needed was transparency. Why? Because the bedrock of tutoring is trust. And to have trust, you need transparency. For a parent to be able to invest in a tutor, to work with their student, there's a whole line of trust that goes through. And to make that happen, you need the parent to know who they're choosing. So what is quality? What is excellence? What is responsible in choosing a tutor? So we've unpacked this over the last few years, and those of you who have been involved in the Love Tutoring community know that we are always exploring this area, and we're looking for definitions that are broad enough to reach all the different types of tutoring all over the world. Undergrads, graduates, volunteers, ex-teachers, school leaders, teaching assistants, all the different types of tutors and all their different focuses, whether it's maths or well-being, whether it's piano. Whatever it is that you're bringing, there are themes around pedagogy that you'll need. And those themes around pedagogy come down to who you are as a person, who you are as a professional, and how you show up as a professional. And I know that the teachers in my school, before they had leadership that made them feel nurtured, they were wobbly, the quality was inconsistent, there were some good days and some difficult days. The people who asserted themselves the most were not necessarily the best practitioners in the classroom, but it was very difficult to identify that. So what we've unpacked here is a really agile model for responsible tutoring. We call it safe, skilled, and supported. Now, as a mum, I want to know that the tutor is safe first and foremost. I want to know, of course, that they don't have any criminal record. I also want to know that if they were concerned, they would know how to respond in order for them to be part of the culture that keeps my child safe. So I need to know that a tutor is CRB'd. I also need to know that they are safeguarding trained. Skilled is really endless and nuanced, because what we're looking to see is, do you know your subject to teach it? I don't want a PhD physics tutor. I don't want a physics tutor who has a PhD. I want a physics tutor who can break it down. So we're looking for pedagogical subject knowledge. We're also looking for those skills of coming close to your student and taking them with you on a journey, that trustworthiness. And really that trustworthiness comes right full circle, because it takes us from supported back into safe. What we're looking to see is that, and I've done some thinking about this and opened some discussions. Is it possible to be safe if you're not supported? Because when things get reactive, do you have someone to turn to? So these three elements of safe, skilled, and supported go really deep into who you are as a person, who you are as a professional, and what your student needs from you. What I'm really speaking to, of course, is professional integrity. So now I'm going to hand over to you, and I think we're bang on time. How do you ensure that your tutors are safe, skilled, and supported? Now, at the end of your workbook, the reading resources that I've collated for you there are just a jumping off point. They're just some food for thought. It's to enable you to be curious and see things that you don't already know and haven't already seen. The people next to you are leaders in tutoring and in tutor businesses. So we want a conversation that is agile enough to facilitate all the different levels of tutoring. So I'm going to hand over to you now. I'm going to ask you to work in groups of 3, please. So if I could start with you, Jen, to Richard, and then Sarah Lynn to Sarah, and I'll leave you all to work it out from there. So I want you in groups of 3, please. Next time I'll be numbering you. And in the remote rooms also, you'll be moved into groups of 3. Off you go. How was that initial conversation for you? Did you find that informative? Did you feel that it was a useful way to start getting to know each other? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you for some feedback verbally, and Adrian's going to bring us any feedback in the chat that comes up in the chat. I want to know from you what you've learned from each other, really. So I'm going to pull this back for a second, actually. Let's ask, what have you learned from your colleagues about keeping the chain? What have you learned about keeping, how each other keeps tutors safe? Thank you.
Interesting point around. Hold on, sorry, can I just hold so I can pass you the mic? Sorry. I'm sorry. Go first. Oh, nice. No, don't stroke it. We had an interesting discussion around the background of the tutor and the difference that makes, because I think a lot of companies, all of their tutor team are teachers and they understand what safeguarding means. If they don't have a background in the classroom, they might never have even heard of safeguarding before. They might not know what you're talking about. And then you kind of have to have a confidence that if they spot something, they're actually going to raise that with you for you to have the opportunity to do something about it, rather than say, that's none of my business, that's their personal life, that's got nothing to do with it.
Anybody want to jump on from that?
I'll add.
Go ahead.
To it as well. Sorry, I'm from the same group, but we also had a bit of a conversation around we tutor exclusively during school time, the pupils are in school, but also then there's a difference for when it's sort of a contract with parents and things like that. So how we would keep children safe in different environments, and the expectations are still very high, but the way we approach it might be slightly different for the different circumstances in the different environments.
So there's something about accountability there, whether you've been employed by the parent or by the school, because of your different delivery models. I understand that. Go ahead, Lucy. Pass the mic.
This is very
Anyone feeling it's a bit Oprah right now?
We were also talking about how it's not just about everyone jumps onto the child being safe, but actually if your tutor doesn't feel safe, I always say to our team that our tutor is probably our most important client, because if you like, the first call that they make to you often is like, I'm thinking of leaving teaching, or I want to tutor, and you need to make them feel safe. And so I think putting people that it links straight onto the supported, but putting those educated professionals in front of children who obviously are feeling safe themselves is my first consideration.
Right, because the educator creates the weather. So if you're showing up with safety, and you're not talking about a dangerous tutor, you're talking about a wobbly tutor, you're talking about a tutor who's not feeling well in themselves. I think that's really, really wonderful. Give her back the microphone, please, because I want to know how, because, sorry, and then Helen and then Richard.
Sorry.
Yeah? Did you bring trainers? Just tell us about how do you enable that tutor who reaches out to you and says, I'm exiting the classroom, I'm feeling all over the place.
Well, it might not, but they say they're feeling all over the place, but it's just that straight away, as the tutoring community, we want to pick them up and be like, right, you might want to speak to an accountant. Here's our the accountant that we work with. They'll have a free chat with you. Just make sure that you know all the deadlines. You've got a timeline here of when you're going to need to do these if you're self-employed. Here's some good qualified tutor. Here's some good places that you can go to get support, so that when they're coming out of a physical school where the sort of support is visible, I think that that's really important, that we show them that tutoring is a safe and secure place to still educate, or
I think that's really,
not really
really
place,
lovely.
but you know what I mean.
Yeah, landscape. I think that's really, really lovely. Thank you so much.
So we kind of have got two elements. Ben here is from Nudge, and obviously they're working with disengaged and those students that the system doesn't fit. And they've obviously got tutors that are going to have criminal records because they are engaging with students that are on the path towards that. So making sure that those tutors are safe, things are going to show up on a DBS check. And you were saying that's obviously a real challenging area. On the other side, I'm probably looking around, one of the voices, I'm a solo tutor. I am myself, there's just me, I don't have a team.
There's no Justin, Helen.
I'm me!
Yeah!
Thank you. But at the same time, I don't have somebody that I can go to, that I can say, wait a minute, there's this happening, there's that happening. I mean, I've got QT that I can go and pick brains. There are people that I know, but a lot of tutors are working on their own. And for them to be safe, it's a whole different conversation. They don't have safeguarding training provided by their tutoring agency.
Is it specifically the safeguarding training, or is it the follow-up?
Some, both. They won't necessarily have the access it provided. They'll have to go and find it themselves,
Right,
and pay for it themselves. Whereas maybe some of your agencies would provide that potentially. Same with DBS. You have to go and find a way of getting your DBS. There are options out there, but it's those things. But then, yeah, if you have a child that has something come up, then who do you talk to? If you have a child that makes a disclosure in a safeguarding context, you don't have an agency, you don't have a DSL, you've got to go NSPCC or to the school. There are options, but again, it's a lot harder if you don't have somebody to talk to.
Yeah, I think it's really, really interesting the way you sort of brought these two very sort of two extremes of grey areas. And I think, when Adrian and I deliver safeguarding, we really like to speak to the grey areas, because if you make it too cut and dry, you're not really equipping a tutor for most real situations. So I'll tell you that when we tune, the DSL at Manning's told me recently that they've had more low-level reports in safeguarding since they've been engaging with our training. And we find that a real sign of success, because when they're picking up the small breadcrumbs, the tutors, when they're recognizing small concerns, it means they're creating that safe culture and they know what they're looking for. So I'm really, really pleased with that. Can we have Richard next here, please? And then I'm going to move on to skilled, which is, a complex area.
Yeah, I totally agree with Lucy and Helen's points, but the safeguarding, to expand it, we think of safeguarding as protecting children, but it's also the tutor. It's not just protecting, it's also well-being. So without disclosing too much, every safeguarding, inverted commas, case we've had, fortunately, in our company history, has not been about the child's safety, but we have had numerous instances of tutors being unsafe, whether that's feeling unsafe or actually being unsafe. So that might be threatened, that might be abuse. You read in the papers that there are tutors who've had weapons or narcotics present, particularly when they go and start doing super tutoring and traveling internationally. But then we've seen burnout cases of tutors being very unwell. You're completely correct. Disclosures, self-harming, anorexia, extreme stress. Tutors, particularly independent self-employed tutors, don't have anywhere they can obviously go and may not know that there are facilities for these. So very, very, very glad to hear that the debate is being widened, that even if the student is unsafe, such as self-harming, if the tutor doesn't know what to do about that, then both are in a very bad position.
Agreed. And that's why we have this sort of dual focus on mentoring and peer support. So the Love Tutoring community, as you know, is this place for tutors to bring their questions and bring their concerns for exactly that reason. Because if you're not feeling well, if you're not okay, you're going to be communicating that not okayness to your students. So even on the smallest level, you won't be doing your best work for your student. But it goes much further than that. And when we first did research talking to tutors, when we're first building out Qualified Tutor, we spoke with a young lady who said that she always starts off in a library before she goes into somebody's home. And only when she feels safe with the student does she go into their home with them. And what's amazed me is I've never heard that since. Because that really is a safer practice and that really is intentional behavior. And I've never heard another tutor say to me, no, obviously I wouldn't go into a stranger's home. Yeah? So we speak about prevention through professionalism, when we speak about our own boundaries, about our code of conduct, and unpacking that in a way that's suitable for me as a practitioner will be different to Sarah Lynn as a practitioner. But what I need to know is what my boundaries are. Yesterday, we ran a safeguarding training, and with this, we're going to move on to, unless you wanted to bring anything from the chat.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
Okay, 1 second, I just want to tell you. Yesterday, we ran a safeguarding training, Parita was there, and somebody asked, what if you're working with an international student and you didn't get them through an agency and you're worried about them? Great big, brand new grey area. So what did I say? I said, put the question in the Love Tutoring community and let's see what comes out of it. Because we're in uncharted territory, but the good news is we're here together. Go ahead. Look at this, Adrian with the microphone.
There we go. Yeah, so there's quite a few things that are being picked up through the chat as the voice of the people.
Come on then.
So you'll love this one, Julia. Part of the safeguarding and the support is about being part of a wider community.
Right.
So Qualified Tutor and the Love Tutoring community. And where people can just post questions, and that's coming through quite strongly here. Other things, picking up on what you've just mentioned there about international students, if you're tutoring internationally, DBS and such like aren't a requirement. So how does that fit in? And Derek mentioned about that he was tutoring, he just didn't feel safe himself. He didn't feel comfortable and safe when he was tutoring. And someone else has
Was that in a specific...
Yeah, in a specific household. Other people have mentioned about the transition from the classroom to private tutoring being tricky, because obviously in school they have recognised systems, and when you go private tutoring it's a little bit greyer, as you mentioned. Someone's mentioned about the tutoring guidelines from the government.uk, which is worth having a look into.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Adrian. Thank you so much, people. Virtual people. Actual people virtually. I'm going to move on to skilled, and I'm going to point out to you that what I've asked you is a question that was deceptively simple. So no, it's not simple to think about safety, because it's about me and it's about you and it's about the environment. And unpacking all of that is complex, and we don't shy away from that complexity. In the same way, skilled is really nuanced. I want to know how you work with your tutors, especially if you are deploying tutors, because I've had lots of people who let go of tutors or don't dare to take on a team of tutors because they're worried about assuring that quality. And they don't want their name to be associated with anything but the quality that they adhere to. So how do you look, and isn't it useful having Nudge here? Because skilled for you is so different to skilled to Mira. And skilled to Mira is so different to skilled to Richard. And when we bring that question of what skill means, when we really point it at the student and their needs, then we come up with something really interesting. Who'd like to jump off this? Who'd like to start this off? Oh, good! I was just thinking that. Or zip line.
Oh dear.
Sorry, no, I haven't. There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it is interesting because we work with a wide variety of students with a wide variety of needs, so therefore need a wide variety of practitioners. And it kind of all feeds into each other for me, this with most, that when someone comes through to work with us, no matter what their background or their skill set, we offer all of the safeguarding, all training in what they're going to need to go out and work with young people in their home, in the community, or in schools. And with that, it kind of starts to build a network so they feel supported as well. So that every one of our tutors, when they go out to one of their interventions, has a link to the case manager, to myself if it's in my area, to various people during the intervention. It's a shared intervention, because we're working with some young people that have got history of violence, have got history of attacking tutors, peers, and it is the sort of lower level stuff I think is really important. Safeguarding, I know we're not talking about that at the moment, but I think it feeds into being skilled. It feeds into being skilled enough to recognise it and feel confident enough to bring it up, and safe enough, supported enough to talk about it, so that the student's safe, the tutor's safe, Nudge's organisation is safe, everybody's safe.
Yeah.
And of course, it then builds the trust. And then within that, people can get skilled in particular avenues. We offer training in PDA and FASD and autism, and again, supporting those people. So we're actively employing people that are neurodiverse or have a history of mental illness, and support them into the workplace to then support young people with similar issues.
Fascinating.
So, yeah.
I'm really glad that you started us off, because you just brought out a new thread that I'm not sure I'd seen before, and I want to bring this over to the tutor companies as well. Organizational skill. So your skill as an organization, the way that you organize yourself to deliver the values that you've set out to deliver. Do you want to speak about that a bit, Johnny? You're giving me the eyebrows.
I should start running, really, shouldn't I?
Thank you very much. So you're looking for talking about the skill of the organisation rather than the skill of the individual. I mean, in terms of Mannings and how we evaluate tutors, I think there's a lot more than their educational ability. We advertise in top universities, so we almost know that they're going to be clued up on their subject before they even come to us. The university's done the hard work of checking that they got AAAs in their A-levels, so we don't even have to worry about that too much. We're looking to see Are they skilled in communicating that knowledge to the pupils that they're working with? Are they enthusiastic? Are they engaging? Are they someone that the pupil is going to want to sit down with for an hour and look forward to the session? So I think there's that side of the skill as well, the skill of being able to relate to the pupil and get them to have a passion for learning. Because if you can get them to enjoy learning, and that's the dichotomy that we often fight against, because we've got these year 11 pupils, struggling to get a pass in maths or English, and they think that you can't work hard and be cool at the same time. And if you put a tutor in front of them who, we used to have this great guy called Alex who used to longboard to his lessons, but was absolutely passionate about astrophysics. And they suddenly went, oh, hang on a second, I can like be like this guy, and I can show enthusiasm in school and then not lose face at the same time. So really as an organization, I always think that our skill is finding those people as our selection ability of getting the right person, and then we completely offload over to QT for upskilling them for the safeguarding training, for the pedagogical training that they wouldn't have any knowledge of. But yeah, I'm really happy to have that relationship and to take these people that have got natural and innate skill and just to help them release it.
That's right. Guide, support. But I tell you what's really interesting is that there is a Manning's type, yeah? And there's also a Prof's type. And I think that consistency does speak to your organizational skill. So I think that's really, really lovely. Thank you so much.
It's a tough thing to do as you grow, is to maintain that, as the pressure builds to take on more and more tutors, if you're becoming more and more successful, to hone that and to make sure that you're still recruiting that same person. You're not cutting corners and going, oh gosh, we need more people, get the volume in, but to stay focused on this, like you say, it's always really pleasing that you say, oh, we can spot the Manning's tutors in our cohorts.
Yeah, and I can spot the ones that Johnny takes on board full time as well. and I'll tell you something else about that. When you speak about empathy and about coming alongside, especially those students who don't do well, who are struggling academically, well, you're taking AAA students, and then you're asking them to relate to those students in school who really don't see the point in maths. But what's lovely about that is that they do, I mean, I've coached lots of them, and what I know is that they do drop their preconceptions and say, other things aren't easy for me. I can help you with this. And that personal development is really very lovely. Yes, go ahead, Andrea.
Thank you. What I want to say follows on quite nicely with what Johnny was saying, is that if you've got agencies that are bringing on the right characters and the people that have got the right start, a lot of the things that I find as somebody who's been a curriculum leader and a subject specialist within English teaching is I tend to have conversations with stakeholders, i.e. parents, a lot of the time about the quality of the teaching. So it comes back to the skill, the pedagogy, and the way that things are being delivered. And when I've worked with Julia on how we can make sure that what students are getting is the right level of examination and subject knowledge, once we've got the right engagement, that for me tends to be a wide open field. And when I speak to parents, a lot of what I bring is I know what it takes, certainly for the narrow students that I study at my tutor at the minute, to get a 5. This student wants to get a 7. And I can do that, and I can still make it really engaging. And the difficulty I find is, how do we know that the tutors that we're putting in front of young people have that same knowledge of how to sequence a series of learning objectives for students? So you've got your mock in 5 weeks' time. Okay, this is what I'm going to do to help you get there. And so I find that obviously at schools, that kind of pedagogy and that CPD exists, that training exists. Yet as soon as you go online with tuition, I've spoken to some tutors that really struggle with, how do I get them to get there? How do I get them to get to a certain sort of element? How do I know what all the poems are? How do I know what the English language paper is? How do I know where the key areas are that they need to focus on? And for me, I'm quite passionate about upskilling in that sense. How can we get them, if they've got the subject knowledge, how can then we get them to transform that into something that gets a student ready for an exam in that narrow sense of that cohort of students. I mean, obviously there's a huge other gateway in those that are school refusers or those that need sort of more hybrid model, but a lot of teachers and a lot of parents are still coming to tuition for that exam-based route. And my main concern being in tuition now for a while is that my professional integrity and skills are high, and I'm really sort of passionate about making sure that everybody's are. And how do we go about in this space that is fairly unregulated and unsupported in so many ways? How do we raise that sort of tide for all ships?
You're making my heart thump. And I'll tell you why, because when we start talking about collective tutor efficacy, that's what you just pointed to there, because you're not speaking like a business leader or like a tutor, you're speaking like a school leader. And you're saying, how do I raise the pedagogical skills of people who are the right people? I know they're the right people. How do I now teach them to sequence? How do I now teach them exam spec? Yeah? And so bringing those two things together is exactly what we want to do next. And with my mummy hat on, the pressure's immense because I'm investing in a GCSE tutor. There is an end point. I can't have the wrong tutor. I can't have a tutor that doesn't have the skills to take my student there. I need to be able to quantify that. And as a tutor, when you speak to professional integrity, I'm not sure I can even ask the question because I'm not sure I can betray my lack of knowledge. Yeah? I don't know. I'm a freelancer. I can't afford to not know. Am I safe to ask? Which takes us back to that question of safety again. Am I safe to show what I don't know yet? And you're only safe if there are answers ready. So that's what's happening here. Go ahead. Oh, sorry, Helen, just a moment. Kirsten, go ahead.
So I think that the missing link between all these things is the technology. So I run a school called Gaia Learning, and we're a Cambridge accredited school, but we specialize in supporting kids with additional needs who don't fit the school system and are neurodiverse. So it's that combination of things that you're saying. So we actively recruit other tutors who have ADHD and thrive with it, have dyslexia and know the strategies to overcome it, but then also combine that with some cool tech that can change the color of the screen or the font of the font size and that. And we maintain the quality of the curriculum by having all of the content flipped in a flipped classroom, and so we can guarantee.
Sorry, dial back. You made too many assumptions there. Explain what a flipped classroom is, please.
Okay, so we have put school on an app. So we're being Cambridge accredited. We've got all of the sequence learning, the breaking it down by lesson, by unit, by overview, so that it is understandable for a parent to deliver or for a teacher to deliver to a classroom. But the goal is to equip the students just with that passion for learning, because sometimes that's all it is. It's not putting a subject knowledge and those A-star students, you can't transfer that. All you can do is inspire them to go, do you know what, I came out of that situation and I was successful, and that's all it is. And also really giving parents the tools as well to feel like they're empowered to support their kids. And I think it's that whole combination of things that is ensures that the skills that we're talking about. And we're exclusively online as well, so we record every single session, and we have a small team, but they all need to be very accepting to watch themselves back, to review their own performance, to watch each other's classes, to do group sessions. And we also all work with several of the same students. So sometimes, some students will say, oh, I really like that one, but not that one. And so we then allow them to pick. And so they've got the agency, they've got the enthusiasm. And for some, we work with kids that selective mutes, PDA, autism spectrum, all of that, but they do actually engage online when they feel that they can see the lesson beforehand, so there's no surprises, and it's not scary, and actually they can't read it like that, but they'll watch it in another format, or they can choose the teacher that they like to deliver it. So yeah, I'm quite passionate about tech as a
I love
thing
it.
in that.
Thank you. I absolutely love it, and I think you're absolutely right. In my dream, it's a combination of tech and tutoring that's going to, which is why we're here. You talk about YouTube, don't you, Richard? Yes, you do. Go ahead, Helen.
So one of the things that regarding the skill that Andrew sort of picked up is that pedagogical skills that I think, again, individual tutors that aren't coming from a teaching background, teachers that have been out the classroom for a while. I know about 7 different ways to teach fractions, and as to which one...
Only 7?
Off the top of my head right now. And yes, there is usually cake or pizza or something like that involved, and we all get hungry. But how do we access as tutors that might not have QTS, tutors that are undergrads, how do we access training and the skills to develop our tutoring? If a student comes to me and said, I did fractions today and I didn't get it, I will try the method the school does. I need to know if they can't access whatever the method the school's teaching, I need to know another way.
Well, you probably need Bond and White Rose.
I need a lot, but there we go.
But
that's just as an individual tutor, as a not holding QTS, it's quite hard to access some of those.
So, but there are 2 things there, aren't there? Because there's the training, but then there's also the resourcing.
Yeah.
And the 2 things go hand in hand. Yeah, thank you.
No, I'm not going to.
Sarah Lynn, and then Helen. Good, new voices. By the way, if you haven't spoken yet, I'm going to pick on you.
So what I was really hearing through a lot of this is needing confidence and needing a culture, and to feel like you're part of a culture, or you're part of the ability to find that support. And so for me, to be able to be skilled and safe and supported, it's about creating an overall culture for the entire community, the entire profession, where we feel confident enough to do that. And to me, it starts with what Lucy was saying at the beginning. It starts with the well-being of the tutor, and it starts with being able to empower the tutor to determine how they can go about feeling safe. So what communities can they join? Do they feel like they need extra support? It allows the tutor to feel like they can connect with the right agency, to find the agency that will value their skills and their own ethos and their values, because not all agencies are cut from the same cloth. So we're giving them the ability to do that. And of course, that all relies on us feeling supported to make those decisions as individuals. So for me, it's all about starting from the person that we want leading the charge, and that's us as tutors. Thank you.
That's right. That was beautiful. Thank you.
It's really a question. We have a sort of program of observation for our tutors. So if they're online, it's quite easy. And if they're in a school, it's quite easy. But once we go for the alternative provision, we're in a home, one-to-one, with kids that are quite vulnerable. And that's when we don't know how that tutor is interacting and doing the job. I mean, you can't really go and observe in the home of somebody else. It's quite difficult to do. So I wonder if there's anyone out there that's got a really good tip about how we observe those tutors in the home and making sure they're doing the job that they should be doing and representing us in the way that they should be representing us.
Ben, do you want to jump in first? Yeah. And then Lucy, and then Kirsten. I think it's well worth giving this area some exploration.
Yes, so we do support reviews. So we have it's a peer-to-peer support review system. So, and it can be really tricky, obviously, with, say, if it's a vulnerable person in family. Often we'll try and potentially let them meet the student beforehand. Certainly speak to the parent. So one of our senior education experts would be in contact with the family, speak to the parent, get their overview of how things are going, and then with the tutor as well, obviously, and then try and build it into one of the sessions to be observed, but in a very calm and involved way. I mean, I did one myself last week and ended up making a clay pig with this autistic young person who very anxious about new people, you know, just kind of got involved, just became a tutor alongside the tutor, alongside the young person. And if it really is impossible, then it's for a series of conversations with parent and the tutor, self-evaluation, and then get back into the sort of supportive and skilling them up if they're struggling.
So how often do you just do one observation a year?
Once a term.
Once a term.
Of every intervention.
Of every single
intervention.
So even if it's, you know, in the
wherever it is, in the home, in the school, in the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we do it online, and obviously if they're in school, we do it, and it's just trying to get a program together of doing it where we're doing more alternative provision now, is making sure that, well, more in the home. Yeah. In the home, and making sure that we're doing a proper observation of the tutor. We do speak to the parents and we do feedback. We have a feedback form that the parent can feedback, the kids can feedback, but it's not the same as actually observing what they're doing. Even, you know, they report back what they're doing. I wondered if there's a bit of technology out there that might be able to take along and do a bit of observation of the tutor.
That's just a simple Google Meet.
Yeah.
If everyone's comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, that's doable as well. But just connecting the two tutors together, you get a sense of it.
You certainly hear from the nudge practitioners that they appreciate those visits. It makes them feel safe. So
yes. It's also a way of being able to give good tutors extra employment. You know, so actually they you know, that's becomes part of their role as a senior education expert or a senior practitioner.
So we speak.
It's valuing good people, and you know, I don't know how many people operate on 0-hour contracts with tutors, or you know, it's a really hard game. It's even harder now for everyone. So actually, you know, it's able to do that. So yeah, again, it's supporting, valuing staff. And just continually upskilling everyone to do different, and then it's sharing as well between them, you know, skills sharing. Thank you.
So we've just got some comments here online as well. So
Adrian, you jumped the queue.
I know, but I thought while the microphone was at this side, it would make sense. Yeah.
Okay.
So Derek was very keen on Kirsten's comment about technology and teaching going.
So was I, Derek.
And it working through. Dee made the point about the flipped classroom can be, you know, very, very powerful, but it does require the students to be invested and the parents to be invested to some extent. Dee also said about pedagogical understanding helps and making sure that people have that understanding about how they can implement things. And then Miguel asked the question about the legislation. And does it not hinder the process for freelance tutors?
Oh, from BEIS?
Yeah.
Woo, lead balloon.
and IR35 issues and such like that. And I think that covers most of it.
Awesome. Yeah. Miguel, we'll come back to that in 6 months. Lucy, go ahead. Yeah, please do.
I have it in 5 quick steps. So obviously we try and do meetings early on with parents and not the children. Often we're working with similar to you, so PDA and really struggles. A lot of our students we can't film because even if we were going to do, you know, because there's all sorts of reasons why we can't film them, but voice notes are brilliant. Because as long as you have the parents, you know, knowledge and everything, and we actually work with the students to eventually start like recording little snippets and being like, you know, working up to maybe if they're doing some French or something like that, just actually let's just record this, you know, as a voice note, because that's also evidence. So we do 8 weekly meetings. It depends on the local authority, but for example, we also, all of our tutors are paid to attend like CETR meetings, TAF meetings and things like that as well. So I think it's just having that overall, always being there to talk about how they're doing, but also projects. That's the last thing, is the projects can then form into our review of how the teaching is going through the outcomes that we can see in terms of, like we were saying earlier, it's sometimes difficult if you've got a child who starts with you and they won't engage with a tutor without punching a wall. If 8 weeks later they've actually created a project in the tutoring, I mean, that's really great case study evidence as well. So yeah, that's
I tell you what really strikes me about that, you know, I watched a recording from Dylan Williams recently talking about how impossible it is to really evaluate effective teaching and learning. And collecting evidence is a really sort of open-ended way of doing that, isn't it? And using the tech to leverage that is certainly going to be part of that. So thank you so much for bringing, Kirsten, you were on the list. You were on the list.
So just to finish on, to elevate a voice note with AI. So I know all our stuff is online, but there's no reason why you couldn't do it as a voice note thing. There's an AI application called Fireflies. So we transcribe meetings, which is far less invasive online. And it not only gives you a transcript, but it also says how much of the lesson was positive, how much the tutor spoke compared to the student, what kind of language was used. Is the language starting to get more complex or not? And then we kind of triangulate that with surveys that the students do at the start of the lesson, how they're feeling before the lesson, what they want to get out of the session, and then they have to do that at the end. Are they feeling better? Can we see that progress over time? And in fact, that's probably more powerful than an observed lesson where everybody's behaving really nicely and on, center.
4 adults at the back of the room.
Yeah, and again, seeing that over time, so that it's not those one-off kind of things.
There's also a lot of metacognition that you're speaking to there by asking the student to self-evaluate. How are you feeling? How are you feeling now? Why? What changed?
And it's just in emojis, like quick, take seconds. So that
I am fluent in emojis. I can write you an essay in emojis. And you can always tell what kind of a week it was on what the history of emojis is that week. Go on, Helen.
No, I do think it's about the type of kids that we're working with as well. I mean, you say you work online. Half of ours would never ever engage online.
So you say that.
They won't.
Just go on.
So, okay. So I'll tell you. So some of our students are more like Ben's. So yeah. So we have selective mutism, PDA, autism spectrum. They're in gangs. They're homeless. They're unexpectedly pregnant, but they are online. They show up because we let them come with a little avatar that they can create, so they don't have to be seen. They don't show their faces. We partnered with a school in Riverside who had tried other options, and the head teacher said, "Look, you're my last hope. This is never going to work." And sure enough, it did. The kids came, and even going from attendance of 0 to that, they're wearing their own clothes, they're in their own space.
Yeah,
so
we work with them once they're out of school. We work with them once they're out of school,
Yeah,
and the local authority specifically say on the bid they cannot do it online. They will not engage online, so they won't learn online because that's the specific. But that's what I'm saying. It's the specifics of the local. We cannot work with them online. I'm not saying they
won't. Yeah.
We cannot work with them online.
We got you. We'll run another session. So, last piece, because thank you. I need to wrap up now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie in reflectiveness with your reflective activity here, which is, please will you pick up this link using your phone. You also have the link on your workbook. Ooh, this is a photo. You're taking a photo of the photos. What I want to capture here, there should be a link at the bottom of this.
Just a tip, because I've just done this and lost all my notes. If you're working on the workbook,
Download
don't click
it.
on the link unless you've downloaded it.
Don't click on the link. Thank you, Sarah. I'm really, really sorry for that. Anybody want to lend Sarah their notes?
Adrian, do you hear that? Can you put that in there?
Yeah.
So, what do I want to know and why do I want to know it? I want to know what you need next for 2 reasons. One, because you'll get this as an email in a second, so it's a record for you of your own thinking. But also because we want to serve, so we need to know. So please be generous in your insights so that we can make sure that we are always innovating the right solutions for tutoring. Once you finish that, you can jump up and have a break.
Sorry, can you give some Wi-Fi card? I'm not in on my phone. It's up there, if you go in by registered user, it's on the side.
Helen, you got it?